of Commerce as our partner and sponsor in their ongoing support. I would like to thank the DPR executive team and Tamara Berry for making all of our events a success. I also would like to thank Dan Ray and his team for speaking with us today. I am now going to hand it over to Maria Fernandez Dominique from Blue Cross Blue Shield, and she will say a few words.
Thank you, Eurasia, and thank you, Tamara. And Tamara, all the grace. Technology sometimes just doesn't work, and you were on it, and you got together with your team, and you did it. So I know on my end and my colleagues who were registered to attend this event, we sympathize and empathize with you. So please take a breath and know that you are amongst friends and this happens. So. As Eurasia said, I'm Maria Fernandez Dominique, and I'm pleased to be here to represent Blue Cross in our strong partnership with the Diverse Professionals Roundtable. For those of you who don't know about our work, we are a community-focused, Massachusetts-based health plan that serves millions of members, thousands of businesses, and 80% of cities and towns across the Commonwealth. Since the onset of the twin crisis of COVID-19 and racial unrest, we've been intentional in our efforts to improve access to care for medical, mental health, and dental. We've invested $4.5 million in contributions across Massachusetts, including a donation to the Wooster Together Fund, grant funding to the Greater Worcester Community Foundation, and the Edward M. Kennedy Community Health Center. Back in February, we teamed up with the Mass League of Community Health Centers and contributed $1 million to provide transportation to and from vaccination sites in underserved communities. We are very, very honored to be part of this community of diverse and dynamic thought leaders, excited to hear and learn from the senior leaders at the WooSox, and honored to be part of the larger effort to promote racial equity, social justice, and economic development in Central and Western Massachusetts. Thank you so much for having me. Not sure who I kick it off to now, but I'll kick it back to Eurasia or Tammy.
I believe it comes back to me. I'm just making sure. Sorry. This is just, the confusion. Thank you, Maria, for what you do, as well as what Blue Cross and Blue Shield does. I feel like you are really committed just on your own to our community, and we really appreciate it. So now I'm going to turn it over to Karen, who is chair of our CEO Breakfast, to say a few words and introduce our guest speakers. Karen, you still here?
Good morning, everybody. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, the grass is green, and the flowers are blooming. And we have fresh air because of it. And it's a good thing that we're all here and that we're here amongst each other. Thank you all for making your time to be with us. One of the things we'd like to accomplish in the DPR's CEO Breakfast is really to explore and have a conversation around equity and access and diversity. And so we have been able to hear from several area executive directors and presidents and CEO, and I have found that this time I'm sure we'll be no less disappointed with Dan. Dan is no stranger to us. He certainly has made his presence even stronger in his role as the executive general manager and executive vice president of business affairs and real estate development for the Worcester Red Sox. And he has served in that role for quite some time after holding the title of general manager in November of 2015. He oversees all of the business functions of the organization and serves as the point person on pretty much, can I say everything, on real estate and investment opportunities around the team's new ballpark. It has certainly been a fantastic couple of weeks in the news everywhere and every place, and the weather has been in your favor, and the COVID has presented its challenges, and indeed you all have literally weathered through it all. And we're glad you're here. We know building that kind of uh, endeavor can have its challenges in terms of building a diverse workforce, um, supporting diverse contractors and businesses, and we're open and looking forward to hearing your insights of what you gained from it. Dan has brought two colleagues to join us in the conversation, Brooke Cooper, who is the Vice President of Marketing, and Sabria Chaudhry, who is the WooSox Foundation Coordinator. Both had started, interestingly enough, with the um, organization as interns. Is that correct? And are moving themselves up. Dan boasts from being from Harvard, but Brooke has earned her MBA in sports management from Franklin Pierce University. Certainly nothing to sneeze at. And Sabria from Emerson College. So not only are they prepared academically, they have certainly made their footprint in this organization. So we'll turn it over to you. And as Dan has shared, this is a conversation, so we invite people to engage him. Thank you, Dan and Brooke and Sabria, welcome.
Well, thank you for that kind intro, Karen. You gave my bio, but you could have just said, I think, jack of all trades and master of none, because we all wear a lot of hats. I don't know if we wear them especially well, but we try to do a lot of things. And I appreciate the kind introduction of my colleagues as well. And I'll just let them introduce themselves too, because Brooke and Sabria, as you said, have been integral members of our leadership team here, and have also taken a real leading effort in our goals to make our workforce more diverse, more inclusive, more thoughtful. And we've spent a lot of time over this last year as we've gotten ready to get going in Worcester, thinking about matters of inclusivity and social justice. And so Brooke is our head of marketing, vice president of marketing, but she also has taken sort of a de facto role as one of our heads of human resources. So Brooke, do you want to say hi to the group and introduce yourself quickly?
Yeah, hi everyone. First, I just want to say I'm so honored to be here today and to be part of this group today. And also, I think what we're talking about is extremely important. Like Dan said, it's been a big topic in our organization. I also want to say, although technically we're the ones giving the presentation, by no means are we experts. We have a long way to go. And so much of what we're talking about today is what we've learned, and we're really eager to get feedback on this. So again, thank you so much, and honored to be here.
Brooke raises a great point. We want this to be really a conversation today. We have 8 or 9 slides, but we hope that people can ask questions or give us thoughts or insight. Really hoping that this is a productive conversation, and we are open for feedback. And as you'll see, this is still a work in progress for us. And another person who has helped us with this work in progress has been Sabria Chaudhry, who is, again, a dual hat wearer. She wears many, many hats, but she is both the manager of our WooSox Foundation as well as our manager of human resources. So Sabria, one of our rising stars in the front office, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi everyone, so happy to be here. As Dan said, my name is Sabria. I manage the WooSox Foundation, also our human resources function at the WooSox. I started as an intern, I think 4 years ago now, in Pawtucket. Went to Emerson College in Boston, where I met Dr. Charles Steinberg, who's the president there. He's actually my professor, and he offered me an internship my junior year, and I kind of just stayed through and got hired full time at the beginning of 2020, and kind of just stuck with it ever since, and learning so much every single day, and just so excited to be here today and speaking with you all. So thank you, Dan.
Well, we're excited to talk here, and again, thank you, Tamara and Eurasia, Maria, Karen. I think Karen, we met maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, right at the start of this whole process. So we met early on in the whole dialogue, and it's an exciting time because we opened the ballpark, as everyone knows, last week. Seen some of you around the ballpark. Hope to see all of you around the ballpark at some point soon. And we spent so much time over the last 2 years building this ballpark, designing it, crafting it in a way that makes it hopefully a very successful venue for us. But we also know that the people who populate the ballpark, both in terms of our fans and our staff, will really make the difference in how this ballpark is perceived and received by the community. So we've spent a lot of time over these last, I would say, 12 plus months talking about how to build our staff, how to create a team both on and off the field that's reflective of Worcester and reflective of the diverse community that Worcester comprises. So I'm going to pull up a few slides here. I hope my internet connection is good enough. I'm off site today from the ballpark. So let me know if everyone can see these slides that I pull up here, and we'll make sure that we get this. Can everyone see a red looking slide here which says briefly introducing ourselves?
Yes.
All right, great. So as I mentioned, these are three members. We're three members of the team here. We have a front office of about 50 people. We have an overall organization of a few hundred people when you include game day and seasonal staff members. And over the last year, as I mentioned, we've formed this sort of internal task force to really prioritize and talk about matters of inclusivity, of social justice, of thoughtful hiring practices. So Brooke and Sabria have taken an active role in this. I've taken an active role. Charles Steinberg, our team president, and Larry Lucchino, our team chairman, have taken active roles. And we've really tried to be thoughtful about how we build our team and how we portray ourselves to the Worcester community as we get going here. So I'll give you guys a brief timeline just of some of the internal conversations that we've had. And I think these conversations were the result of a confluence of circumstances. Certainly about a year ago, when we were all in the midst of the pandemic, we started to turn much of our focus to Worcester. We had to cancel, unfortunately, the 2020 baseball season at the minor league level. And because of that, we had an opportunity to look ahead a little bit to 2021 and to think about what our staff would look like and how we would recruit and how we'd build that staff. I'll be honest that those conversations we had last summer were also influenced by events in our country and in our world. The horrific killing of George Floyd certainly had an impact on our full front office and sparked some internal conversations among front office members talking about where a group like the WooSox can help or contribute to the dialogue, where we can be of some service in that whole dialogue. So we had these conversations over the summer of 2020 with Brooke, with Sabria, with other members of our front office. And over the course of the summer and into the fall, we decided to bring in some outside people to talk with us as well, knowing that among a group of 40 or 50 voices, you would hear a lot of perspectives, but maybe not all perspectives. So we have had some really important conversations, I would say. In August, we spoke with Ron Waddell of Legendary Legacies. Many of you might be familiar with Legendary Legacies, but they are a Worcester group. They work with youth in the Worcester community who need some support and some resources. And so we spoke with Ron and wanted to really understand how our arrival in the city of Worcester was being perceived. And that just doesn't mean among our corporate partners or our season ticket holders or the people who are coming to all of our games, but really all residents of Worcester and all people in the city of Worcester and the Central Mass community. So we had that conversation, which was an important one. We brought in a pair of moderators from the Anti-Defamation League to speak with our staff about subconscious and unconscious biases. We knew that we'd be soon hiring a new group of staff members, and we wanted to really be thoughtful about how we did that, how we interviewed people, how we talked to people. We had a hiring training in February of 2021 with Vincent Pearson. Vincent used to be the head of minor league baseball's diversity and recruitment efforts. So Vincent came in and gave us some really good advice about how to look at a sea of candidates. If you have hundreds of people coming to you, how do you talk to them, sift through them, and then also recruit people who might not necessarily react to a job fair posting, go into some places where you might not have gone before to find good candidates and people who can really represent your team well. And then we also had a review of some of the implicit biases in the hiring process. And Brooke, maybe you can talk for a second, because I know you led this sort of internal dialogue about how we talked about implicit biases and trying to filter some of those out from our interview process.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll say the city of Worcester was really phenomenal in providing us with some educational materials. There are so many different types of inequities that exist in the interview process. And a big thing for us was having or encouraging our staff to have structured interviews, because otherwise you turn a lot to affinity bias in hiring people who look like you and who have the same experiences as you. Oh, we went to the same college, we know the same group of people and those sorts of things. Which really doesn't make for fair opportunities when hiring, especially a large staff. We knew that this is the largest hiring we're probably ever going to do, starting from scratch, and so it was really important to kind of get it right and give this the time that it deserves. So again, so many different types of biases that exist. Another thing was that we had to do our job fair 100% virtually, which could be an issue for individuals who maybe don't have the same internet access or access to computers, as well as individuals with disabilities who might struggle with a virtual job fair. So we worked closely with the Central Massachusetts Employment Collaborative to make sure that we were providing opportunities for individuals, again, who might have disabilities and not as fair of a shot in the virtual process. And so I think being aware of those different things, and again, when we did our moderation in our session with the ADL, we all have blind spots that we're not aware of. And I think as a staff coming to, I guess, being more aware that those blind spots exist and not ignoring them was something that we felt was very important for all of us to be aware of going into the hiring process. So, and it was, you know, it was really interesting, I think, to learn of the different types of biases that, you know, affinity bias, you know, there's, you know, immigrant bias, and there's heightism and gender bias, and so many things in the process. And so it was important for us to be aware of that. Also, when doing it virtually, it's important to understand that not everyone has a quiet space to go to when they're home. For me, I know, you know, working from home, there are times throughout the day where my 1-year-old is upstairs screaming. And while that might be unprofessional in normal settings, when we're doing things virtually, we have to be aware of those situations and circumstances. And it's really not fair to go to an individual and say, oh, you know, they were distracted or they had things going on in the background, because not everyone has that quiet space at home to go to. So we have been talking about these, and I think coming up with a structured process for you to provide a fair and safe opportunity for candidates.
Thanks, Brooke. And Brooke mentioned that that job fair process. So we held that job fair on February 20th and 21st, a weekend in February, and had overwhelming numbers. We had about, I think, Brooke, 1,000 people who registered for that. But really, as Brooke said, making sure that you know, we were assessing all candidates and looking at all candidates in a similar way, and not you know, subjecting ourselves to some implicit, unconscious biases that might disadvantage candidates, was really a key focus for us in that process. So we held that Polar Park virtual job fair the 20th and the 21st. As Brooke said, the city of Worcester was a great partner in that. And from that, we were able to start building out our staff, hiring, I think, 200 or so people for our staff just from that job fair. So that was really important for us. And we also circled back with the folks from Legendary Legacies. We had a roundtable, and you can see a picture from that session where we spoke with members of the Legendary Legacies group to speak with kids who are 16 years old, 17 years old, high school kids, or college students who are here in a position where they're looking at our arrival and they're wanting to understand, how will the Worcester Red Sox benefit my community? Not just playing baseball, not just selling tickets and selling hot dogs, but really making an impact in the Worcester community here. So we had these conversations, and as I said, they were a combination of internal and external conversations. We really wanted to get sort of our internal house in order and have some understanding of our staff before we really went into some of these more public forums to talk. So really understanding where we stood. We also tried to provide our own staff with some educational materials and to talk about diverse hiring, not just as the right thing to do, but something that could be something of a strategic business advantage. So we found a few articles that talked about how diversity really impacts companies in many ways. It helps them culturally. It also, in cases, helps the bottom line and helps the business profitability. We saw a study by McKinsey that showed that companies in the top quartile for racial and ethnic diversity are 35% more likely to have financial returns above their respective national industry medians. So showing that diversity is the right thing to do, but that it also has business advantages too. And sometimes, you know, I think Ben Franklin said, you know, appeal to incentive, not just to reason. You want to show people why there are good reasons to do things beyond just being good things to do. So we talked about that particular study, which was a good one we found. We also found, let me just press ahead here, a case study by Harvard Business Review entitled Diversity as a Strategy. And it looked at IBM, which had a very sort of white male dominated hierarchy there for decades and decades and decades. And IBM was very intentional in the way that they tried to diversify their staff and diversify their team from senior leadership to entry-level people. And in the course of doing that, IBM felt that they had a sort of pronounced business advantage because they were able to connect with their customers more authentically and more resonantly. So that for us was big when we saw a company like IBM, which has hundreds of thousands of employees. They were able to go and really rethink how they had done some things. So when we looked at ourselves as a 50-person front office and as a 200-person company, we said, there's no impediment to us doing the same thing and trying to be really thoughtful about how we reconfigure some things. So we looked at those case studies, we shared them with members of our front office, and we also spent a lot of time on our marketing efforts. And this is something that Brooke has really led. Sabria has been a part of this. We recently introduced an alternate team name, an alternate jersey called the WAPAS, which, and Brooke can do a much better job of describing this than I can, but WAPAS is sort of a celebratory term, and we felt like this was really important to rebrand ourselves on certain days of the week. And Brooke, maybe you can give an overview of the WAPAS initiative and how that's gone so far.
Yeah, so like Dan mentioned, a lot of our promotional efforts are meant to be really intentional when it comes to inclusion. And this is actually part of a larger minor league baseball. It's called Copa de la Diversión, or Fun Cup. And it's a season-long series to celebrate the culture of local Hispanic and Latino communities. So there will be at least 7 games this season where the WooSox actually become Los Wepas de Wooster. And Wepa is an expression of happiness or excitement. So for instance, if a WooSox player were to hit a home run, someone might yell Wepa, and it's a really positive term. And so what we're doing with this is we have a really phenomenal WEPA advisory committee made up of local Latino community leaders who are assisting and helping to contribute ideas regarding, sources of pride in the Latino community. And so this is, I think a big example of that, where like we're literally changing the team name, our uniforms, and doing different things throughout the ballpark and whatnot. And so this is one that we just announced maybe a month ago or so, but we're really excited about.
Yeah, this will be a cool promotion. I think our players love the WAPAS. They actually have asked a couple of times, like, can we wear a WAPAS jersey instead of a WooSox jersey? And so I think they're really getting into it. And when you get the buy-in of the players too, that obviously helps because then fans respond to it. There's a nice synergistic effect. So Brooke mentioned just the effort to include other voices. We've really tried to make this more than just sort of an internal WooSox decision, but include other people to say, that concept works well. That one is well-intentioned, but it kind of falls flat. It doesn't resonate. So we've really tried to think about that. You also see here on the upper right hand of the page, bilingual signage that we have throughout the ballpark. So we've tried to make the ballpark itself inclusive and welcoming to show that we have this community here that speaks many, many languages, not just English and not just Spanish, but many languages. So how can we really appeal and reach out to different communities? And I think this next page shows some of these different communities that we're hoping to reach out to through our promotional schedule. And this is something that Brooke and Sabria have taken a lead on, but really having different nights catered to different communities. You see Asian American and Pacific Islander night coming up in a couple of weeks. You see Juneteenth. We're going to have 2 games actually to celebrate Juneteenth. You see Deaf Awareness and Autism Acceptance Night. Brooke talked about really reaching out to those in the disabled community and making sure that they feel included and welcomed. A weekly Women in Baseball celebration that we'll have. Let's see here, a celebration of Pride Night on September 10th and September 11th. Veterans Nights as well, and Heritage Nights throughout the season. And Brooke has educated us a bit too on sort of these pillars of diversity and these key elements. And it's sort of an ascending order of tolerance, acceptance, celebration, and advocacy, and really making sure that our front office understands that these diversity ideas come in different forms, and we need to be thoughtful and intentional about how we celebrate them throughout the season and hopefully for years to come here.
Dan,
we've also taken a look.
Going back to I think those 4 pillars. So diversity, like we mentioned, comes in many forms, but I think that diversity and inclusion so often are just used together as if they're the same thing, but you can have a diverse workforce. That doesn't necessarily mean that your workplace is inclusive. And that's something, again, that we're learning. And tolerance is actually the bare minimum that you could possibly have and that you could possibly do. And then, like Dan said, it kind of grows from there: acceptance, celebration, and advocacy. And so again, we're trying to be really intentional. I think we're, starting to touch the celebration aspect. And that's what these promotions are meant to do, is to really celebrate, I think, the different forms of diversity and whatnot. But again, knowing that we still, while we are just, I guess, touching the surface of that, we still have a long way to go to being advocates.
Is this a good time to, there's a couple of questions. I see Chisoma's hand is up, and then someone asked, this is great, first of all, let me just say that. And one question had to do with, is there anything that's going to focus on Black History Month? And of course, the name that comes through is Jackie Robinson. Well, they didn't say month, but doing anything for the Black African American community. I see you have Juneteenth as a recognition, but specific, even more than that, I think is what the question is.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And we have, I think, over the last few years, even in Pawtucket, tried to make celebration of Jackie Robinson's birthday. In late January, we host an annual Jackie Robinson Celebration of Life in January. Typically, Major League Baseball and Minor League Baseball will also have extensive celebrations of Jackie's life in April to celebrate the anniversary of his debut on April 15th, 1947. So obviously this year we didn't play baseball in April up here in Worcester. We had our season delayed by about a month, but we are going to look for additional opportunities. As you mentioned, Karen, Juneteenth is a very important one for us. That whole weekend will really be a focus on Juneteenth and that weekend, and then other opportunities throughout the season, certainly. And, to be candid, baseball has always not done the best job of celebrating African-American history. I think sometimes there's a tendency to think that, Jackie Robinson broke the color barrier in 1947, and, it was this magical moment, and then things automatically got better. And I think baseball, when you look at right now, our numbers, both of players on the field who are of color, but also executives and coaches and people in support roles for the team, our numbers aren't where they should be. They're not good enough right now. We're not doing a good enough job of bringing people of color into the baseball world and making them feel accepted. And as Brooke said, it's not just tolerance or acceptance. It's more than that. It's advocacy. So we can do a better job of that. And I think that has been a conscious area of focus that we need to be better as an industry in that regard. And, Jackie Robinson's life and his legacy lives on. We need to celebrate that, but also think about new and better ways to make people feel included in the baseball world.
And you have the challenge also with, the season, for example, Black History is year round, but it's dedicated in the month of February, which isn't necessarily fit in the baseball season. But you do have the Negro League and, Kansas and that whole museum, and there might be some ways to connect. There's some wealth of historical information, as it relates to baseball and African Americans, and obviously the Latino community as well.
Karen, you're right. I was me who put out the question. So, and I'm sorry, I see hands up, but I do have to just bounce in. I definitely would, I'm gonna tell you now, there definitely gotta be some type of night, some type of an event, because it's a lot of Latinos in Worcester, but there's still a lot of African Americans in Worcester, right? And so just to have one weekend, to me, I'm feeling a type of way. So Brooke, if you need to reach out with me, I don't mind collaborating on something with you. But we've got to have a Jackie Robinson night, day, game, even as Karen said, the Negro League, you have WAPA, 7, how many nights, which is great, it's amazing. But I'm gonna need to see at least the African-American Black touch. Especially I've been promoting the WooSox. So I'm gonna need to see something. I just had to throw that out. So sorry to.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, we appreciate that, Sharmise. Thanks for saying that. Thank you. That's we'd love to collaborate. We'd love to talk more. So let's do that. Offline, and we'll send you our information for myself and for Brooke and Sabria, and would love to talk more about that.
Great.
Any other questions? And then we can scroll through the chat box here.
Yeah, there was one.
Chizoma's hand is up, so I just wanted to recognize. I don't know if Chizoma, if you.
Thank you. Yes, I'm here. I'm here. So first of all, thank you. This is awesome. I wanted to suggest, I know that Worcester is a big multi-ethnic city, and there's so many youth dance troupes, so many from different backgrounds in Worcester. Would you be interested in reaching out to different groups, different multi-ethnic groups, so that some of your pre-game shows would feature one or two of these different ethnic, multicultural dance troupes that will draw young people to you, that would expose younger people to baseball? And so you start to have a year-long or baseball season-long city celebration that you're constantly drawing in young people, and their families will come. And that way you are really embedding yourself and creating your own identity in the city.
I love that idea. I love that idea. I think Brooke and Sabria are even more involved in our pregame ceremonies and in-game ceremonies than I am, Shizoma. So we would love to have that sort of element and be able to, again, tell people you're welcome here. We want to celebrate youth dance troupes and groups that maybe wouldn't have thought before I can go to a WooSox game and be celebrated and be on the field. We would love that. So let us know of anyone who can be part of that, and we would love to talk to them.
Thank you. And I see Deborah's hand is up.
Yes, it's Deborah.
Oh, Deborah, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Thank you so much, Dan and Brooke, and I've lost the other. Sabria, thank you. So my question, I put a point in the chat. I'm the Dean of the Business School at Worcester Polytechnic, and I'm here, and my colleague Kola Akindele from WPI is also here. I'm looking at your front office and see virtually no diversity. So I think that you know, I'm looking for you to walk the talk in your front office, but there's a huge, multi-million-dollar, investment, business development. That's your focus, Dan. And what I'd love to hear from you is, how are you engaging minority businesses to ensure that there's some of that money, the business development money, that's actually going to women and minorities, minoritized groups, to ensure that the financial benefits of the WooSox being in Worcester are actually coming to people of color?
Yeah, great questions, Deborah, great points. And I think they segue into our last couple of slides here, but I'll just say a couple of things in response. I think your first point about the diversity of our front office is well taken. It's not where it needs to be. I think that we have in our front office right now, as I mentioned, about 40 people. I think we have 4 people of color in our front office. So that's a number that's just not, 10%. That's not where it needs to be. And I think when we first came to Pawtucket a few years ago, not to cast any aspersions or anything, we had largely a white male dominated front office. Everyone looked a lot like me. And, we knew at the time that needed to change, that needed to improve. Have we made some progress? Yes. Have we made enough progress? No. And are we working to make it better? We have to. That's incumbent on us. I think right now in our front office, our gender diversity is a lot better. We're probably 50-50 now in our front office in terms of gender diversity. But in terms of ethnic diversity, we're still not there where we need to be. And I think we've really focused on, leadership level recruitment. We've tried to focus more on entry level recruitment. We've talked more about staffs like our intern staff, our usher staff, our security staff, because a lot of the times those are pipelines into front office roles. That's how I got my start. That's how Brooke got her start. That's how Sabria got her start. So those roles need to be more diverse than they have been for us and for other teams in the past. And so we looked actually recently just at the numbers that we have among some of our game day staff members. So among our 5 largest game day staff areas, this include interns, This includes ambassadors. This includes security and ushers and members of our control room upstairs who operate our video boards. Right now, we have 37% female representation among those areas and 30% for people of color. And again, I would say those are numbers that are improving, but they're not where they need to be. And we need to continue to focus on that and really focus on diverse recruiting at, again, the executive level, at the middle management level, at the entry level, at the game day seasonal level, throughout the organization. It needs to be a conscious focus that we're improving there and we're getting better. And I think that same mindset and that same focus also applies to how we work with outside businesses. Because as you said, Deborah, we have this project that we've touted as, an economic development catalyst and a great thing for the city of Worcester, which we think it is, but we want it to benefit the full city of Worcester and not just us and a small group of businesses that we've worked with in the past. So we've talked a little bit about outside vendors and who we can work with. Really focusing on how we select vendors, how we work with vendors, how we convey our expectations to the vendors about how they then work with their subcontractors. And one example is a group called Unit Pro that we brought in just a couple of months ago. They are our official ballpark cleaning and just overall, sort of ballpark management service. Their contract with us is, I think, a few $100,000 of value annually. They are a women and minority owned business in the Worcester area that's done some work in different parts of Worcester and different parts of central Massachusetts. So that's an example of a group that we've brought in, and we need to do more of that. We need to bring in more vendors. We've created a program called Taste of Wooster, where we work with different restaurateurs and bring in restaurateurs to sell their food in the ballpark. And we've tried to really make a conscious effort to bring in different communities. Accra, which is in the Worcester public market, is one of the many Taste of Worcester companies here with us, and they're helping us to sell, I think, West African cuisine and things that are maybe not what people would expect from the, ballpark hot dog and peanuts and Cracker Jack crowd. So trying to be more thoughtful about that, how we portray ourselves with vendors, how we portray ourselves internally, and how we make people feel included, so that it's not just some sort of, lip service effort. And like you said, we're not just talking the talk, but also walking the walk here.
So Dan, this is good. There's a lot of chat conversations in the chat, and Brooke is right on top of it. Thank you, Brooke.
She usually is. She usually is one step ahead of me.
I remember when we met, you all had shared, you said it a little while ago, a point of entry into just the sports industry is through these entry level, these internships. And so there's some ideas around internship opportunities with Worcester State, with WPI. Obviously, I'm no longer with Quinsig, but I got to put Quinsig in as a plug, right?
Of course.
And so that might be a way to continue that, are looking for those, those students who are Worcesterites in many ways, and looking for those opportunities, just as what's been afforded to Brooke and Sabria. In terms of vendors, we do have, as part of our DPR, business owners. And so how might they tap into some of these and connect with your organization?
Yeah, I would say, Karen, the three of us are probably the maybe the most direct pipelines, but we can also connect you depending on where you're looking. When it comes to vendor relationships, we can connect with our concessionaire. We use a group called Pro Sports Catering that does all of our food and beverage in the ballpark. And they were actually the ones who brought us the idea of Taste of Worcester. They said, we want to have, 10 companies or 12 outside restaurateurs come in and sell their product at the ballpark. So they've been a good resource in this and a good help in all this. We could certainly connect everyone with that group. There's a gentleman by the name of Cody Malone, who's the head of our food and beverage, and we'd be happy to bring him into the conversation. As I mentioned, Dr. Charles, our team president, is certainly focused on this as well. And I think just sharing our information and letting people know that we're accessible and we want to be approached with thoughts and ideas and recommendations. And you say, this restaurant, you've never heard of it, you've never been to it, but would be a great addition to the ballpark. We want to hear that. We want to hear about vendors. We use, all types of contractors and subcontractors for work around the ballpark. If you have recommendations, we would love to hear them and love to know of good, diverse companies that can help our ballpark. And as Deborah said, kind of spread the economic development wealth a little bit and not just have it be concentrated in, a small group here.
Right. Thank you. Because, when I think IT, I think construction, I think repairs, I think, like you said, there's a whole wide range of other subcontracts that you do. But certainly when I think sports, you have to have the food and beverage industry. That they kind of go hand in hand.
Absolutely.
What have you all learned? I mean, you really have invested a lot of, I think it's good that you took the time to learn, that you said, let's not go into this as though we have this knowledge. Just start talking to people and find out and listen and read and make some commitments. Compassion is empathy plus action. And so what's you've said some parts of your vision, but what have you learned from this that you didn't think about before, but now you're committed to say, this has to be a part of our DNA?
I think
I'll let Brooke, Brooke, you want to take a first shot?
In very brief, we've learned how much more we still have to learn. I think, we're going to, Worcester is new to us, even though it's not that far away. And I think the incredible importance of collaboration and not just assuming that we know is so important. And that's what needs to be part of our DNA, I think, is the collaboration with the community. Because even, here we are, I think, giving a presentation, and it's, I think, easy to pat ourselves on the back, but then there are a lot of good questions that come up about what we still have to do. So I think that just continued learning and conversations are, what I found is very important. And we just have so many more organizations and people to meet. And so I am seeing in the chat a ton of people reaching out, and I really appreciate that. So
great. Yes, people, please continue to put your information. I no longer am at Quinn SIG, but I work for an organization, a Century of Care Alliance, that serves a lot of folks who are new Americans, who have immigrated here either by choice or, in seeking asylum and as refugees. And so where might be some opportunities to cultivate that community, which is, as you had said earlier, Dan, Worcester is known for people speaking many, many languages. And so what might be some opportunities for new Americans?
Yeah, I mean, we would love to, as Brooke said, learn more. We've taken, I think, a toe deep or a foot deep, dip in the water here, but there's a lot more learning to do. I think as far as new communities, I remember a couple of years ago learning about the Ghanaian community in Worcester and I remember parking in a church parking lot up near Fallon Health when we went to Fallon for a meeting and seeing this Ghanaian National Church and looking up and seeing the numbers of people from Ghana who are in the city of Worcester and who have settled in the city of Worcester. So I think learning more about, it's sort of a two-way street. We need to learn more about those communities and then welcome those communities to the ballpark. We have started to do some sort of roundtable discussions, going to places like the Ghanaian church and going to different areas of Worcester and really having these conversations. The pandemic has frankly made some of it more challenging. We would rather be there in person, talking to a group, in person, in a room. Zoom is great. Zoom is a good facsimile for a lot of things, but Zoom is not a perfect replacement, I would say, for the power of in-person conversations, in-person dialogue. And so I think now that we are returning to some semblance of normalcy here in the coming weeks, I think we'd like to pick that up again and get going on that, because we had started that in 2019 to go out to some different groups and go to different members of the community and not just expect people to flock to Polar Park. I think it's sort of, arrogance or conceit to think that everyone should just come to us and they should come to our ballpark and we'll welcome them. We'll roll out the welcome mat when they're ready to come to us. No, you need to go and be proactive and go to people and show them that you're reaching out to them, because baseball, again, frankly, over the decades has not always done that. And I think we're looking to pick that up and continue that effort to go out to different community groups and speak to communities and say, we need to come to you just as much as you come to us.
Great. Thank you. I want to be respectful of our time, and I will say that I have found you to be very accessible. So Mr. Jack of all trades and master of many, if I can take that liberty, encourage people to reach out to you and your team. I have found you all to be exactly what you said, to be out there and in community. So everyone on this call, I encourage you to take Dan up on that opportunity, to invite him to get to know where you are and what you're doing and showcase, your work in your locations. Obviously, Worcester is a wealth of gifts and talents. So we're going to close. If there's anything else, Dan and Brooke and Sabria, that you want to share before we wrap it up, and I will pass it on to Michelle.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Thank you to our sponsor, Blue Cross. Thank you to Maria. And let me start by introducing myself. I'm sorry. My name is Michelle Mcmahon. I am the other co-chair of DPR. I'm also a manager at UMass. So I'll start my spiel over again. Thank you to Blue Cross for being a continuous sponsor. And thank you, Maria. Thank you to the WooSox team, to Dan, Brooke, and Sabria for a great presentation and conversation. Maybe future state DPR can host an event at Polo Park or even attend a game as a group. We can have a DPR night. Plug. Thank you to all of you who participated on today. So for upcoming events, our next event will be Thursday, June 24th for our Cocktail Connection, which is a social networking event, and it will be virtual. And then for the month of July, we will be taking a hiatus, and then we will resume again back in August. And hopefully by then we'll be able to gather in person versus doing it virtual. To become a member or for more information in regards to DPR, you can just shoot an email to membershipdpr@gmail.com. And thank you again for joining. Until we connect again around the round table or till we meet at the Polo Park, enjoy your day. And thank you again for participating.
Before you sign off, Dan, we're going to give your team the last word, but there's one more question from our sponsor and Maria. So we just want to give her the opportunity to acknowledge. We want to have the floor, Maria, and Dan will let you all say goodbye to us all after that.
Oh, thank you so very much. The question that I had was about youth access to Polo Park. I just wanted to co-sign all that was said about getting youth access to Polo Park. And we actually have been thinking about that at Blue Cross, about how we can sponsor youth to go to Polo Park. And funny enough, my boss just dropped off of the call, but I just want to pledge and say that we want to work with the WooSox and we want to work with the Chamber to sponsor youth to get to Polo Park. We know how important it is that this amenity in their community needs to be accessible to them. So whatever we can do to get them there, we want to pledge that we want to do that. So I just wanted to say that.
Great.
That'd be great. Yeah, we'd love to speak, Maria, more offline about that. And absolutely, we need to get young people to the ballpark, and it's not just giving a ticket necessarily, but it's making sure they have the access transportation-wise to get there, the ability to enjoy a day or a night at the ball game and then get back home. So absolutely, we'd love to talk about that and appreciate, that sort of commitment. And I think we've had a lot of support from the corporate community this last, I think, 2.5 years here. And it's sort of that, coalition of corporate partners with us and community partners who I think can make this really special. So I guess I'll just conclude with a thank you back to everyone for your thoughts, for your candor, for your feedback. You'll have all of our information. And as Karen said, we're not too tough to find. So certainly reach out whenever you need to. And we'd love to talk more because, as Brooke said, this is an education process and it's something that we need to focus on every day. It can't just come and go and be, a monthly check-in or a sort of passive, oh, we're doing well, pat ourselves on the back. We'll talk about it another month. It's a daily focus. It has to be a daily focus for us in order for it to be effective. So we really appreciate everyone's time, appreciate everyone talking, and look forward to seeing everyone around the ballpark very soon here.
Great. Everybody go get some vitamin D. The ballpark is a good place to get some, but go get some vitamin D, drink some water, and do one kind deed in the course of the day. Take care, everyone.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks,
you, Dan and Brooke and Sabria.
Take care, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Well done, Tamara.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. I really appreciate you. I think everyone is stirred up.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So I guess Eurasia, we could pick another time to sort of debrief and circle back?
Yeah, we definitely need to do that. It went very well though. I was very happy
Yeah.
with it, even with the glitches. Michelle is actually on as she's on my phone.